Welcome to Arts in the City. I'm Pat Collins at the High Line, where New Yorkers and tourists are enjoying the last days of summer. For our first story, we go to the Bronx, where Donna Hanover explored the hottest exhibition of the summer. The famous Mexican artist Frida Kahlo was a painter, so you wouldn't be surprised to find her work in a museum. But she's also being celebrated here at the New York Botanical Garden.
We looked at all the paintings that she created to see which plants she represented, and we looked at the embroidery in her dresses, we looked at the flowers she wore in her hair and all the photographs.
Karen Dowdman of the New York Botanical Garden says they've pulled together many of the plants Frida Kahlo had in her own garden.
She had fuchsia, she had dahlias, and she had zinnias, all sorts of cacti and succulents. Frida was so passionate about Mexican culture and all things native to Mexico. That was the main component of the things that she surrounded herself with, whether it was her clothing or her hairstyles, and also the plants that she collected.
In addition to seeing plants like Frida grew, visitors can stop by the Library Art Gallery to see some of the artwork she created that's been loaned to the Botanical Garden. The iconic image for the exhibition is the self-portrait with thorn necklace and hummingbird.
It's a beautiful portrait of Frida, and you can see she looks serious. She's got her eyebrow, she's got her hair in a really nice woven braid on top of her head. Behind her, you'll see alocasias and calocaceas and xanthosomas, all different types of elephant ear plants. Those are the backdrop in the portrait, and those are in the garden here in the conservatory.
Frida lived from 1907 until 1954. As a child, she had polio, which left her with a limp. And then at 18, she was badly injured, pierced by a chunk of steel in a crash between a bus and a trolley car. That's actually when she started painting.
When she was ill and bedridden, her family created an easel for her so that she could paint in bed, and it was sort of something to help her pass the time.
She had often watched the famous Diego Rivera as he painted a mural at her school. They later fell in love and had a long, open marriage. He recognized her talent and encouraged her art. Some of her works show deep sorrow about her 3 miscarriages and her inability to have a child. Others show happiness.
She was always putting her animals into the paintings as well. Her little parrot, Bonito, is featured in a few of the still lifes.
Frida and Diego lived in the house where she grew up, La Casa Azul, the Blue House, which is now a museum.
It's a beautiful courtyard-style home with a garden in the center, and the walls are all blue. So it was really a challenge to find the exact blue color to bring that back here to the Bronx so that people could experience Casa Azul blue.
But you did it.
We did it. The pyramid is one of the focal points of Frida Kahlo's garden in Coyoacan, Mexico. This pyramid is almost exactly the same. It was originally created by Frida and Diego when they expanded their garden, and they were looking for a way to showcase Diego's collection of pre-Hispanic sculpture. There were many photos of her in the garden. There's all sorts of marigolds, which are really important in Mexican culture. There's calla lilies, which are in many of Frida and Diego's paintings. This is our version of Frida's desk in Frida's studio. Her studio was in her home in Mexico City, the Casa Azul. It had these beautiful, huge windows that overlooked the garden. Beautiful wood desk, beautiful easel, all sorts of paintbrushes and little bottles of tints.
While museums often borrow work by different artists, it's a little unusual for a botanical garden to have artwork on loan.
There are only 225 Frida Kahlo works. Many of them can't travel out of Mexico City because of cultural patrimony. And so those that can travel, you have to really have a great angle for the exhibition, and they were thrilled that we were looking at Frida Kahlo differently. We were really inspired by seeing her still life paintings and her self-portraits and how much floral imagery is in all of those works.
People have long been intrigued by Frida Kahlo's love affairs and political views in favor of the poor, as well as her art.
She has definitely livened up the New York Botanical Garden this summer, and we've had thousands and thousands of visitors, many of whom come to the New York Botanical Garden dressed as Frida Kahlo, and we just love that. They like that she was a rebel, they like that she was so into her culture, and that she did what she wanted to do.
For more than 4 decades, Caroll Spinney has entertained and educated America's preschoolers as Big Bird and Oscar the Grouch. Caroll is the subject of a new documentary, I Am Big Bird, and this year he celebrates his 46th anniversary on Sesame Street.
Abgadabky-jackalmanawquerstewrixes is the most remarkable word I've ever seen.
People often say that you manage to be doing it over 4 decades later. Who could imagine that? You know, it seemed a little bit amateurish when we first started, because even the Muppets weren't honed to the slickness they got to. The writers didn't even know what Big Bird was going to be, so all he was just introducing him. I am Big Bird. I didn't talk in the present voice. I was more like, oh, here I am, little Big Bird.
Big Bird stands 8 feet 2 inches tall and is covered with 6,000 turkey feathers, dyed in 2 shades of yellow. Caroll changed his voice and attitude to play Sesame Street's most cantankerous character.
Now that you're done with your happy singing, scram, will ya?
And who inspired Oscar the Grouch?
Well, my father was very grouchy, but he ended up a wonderful old man. I got the voice from a cab driver, you know, where to, Mac?
While Oscar prefers living in a trash can, Big Bird travels the world. In 1983, he went to China to shoot a PBS special.
Hey, everybody! This is the Great Wall of China!
We found out that an awful lot of the people felt they had never seen anything like it, or a puppet that worked like that, that they thought it was a real bird.
In 1986, Big Bird was scheduled to be on board the Space Shuttle Challenger.
And the reason why, by the way, they wanted me was that the children of America were not particularly interested in NASA's programs, particularly with Star Wars having those exciting rocket ships.
So the motivation was for NASA was to have you get young people excited about space.
Yes, because there are cameras all over the inside of the craft. Well, then they found there was no place to store the bird. It's pretty cramped in there.
A New Hampshire teacher, Krista McAuliffe, took Caroll's place on that ill-fated mission.
And liftoff.
Where were you?
I was. We were on set filming another show, and
what a moment for you!
And I said, "Oh my God!" You know, my scalp crawled. I think this terrible, but mostly I could think of. We saw her children and her husband, but it was a tragedy.
The unexpected death of Jim Henson in 1990 was another emotionally devastating experience.
The most terrible blow to hear that he had died. He was only 53. Brian Henson, of course, he called me and said, "Would you be willing to have Big Bird sing 'It's Not Easy Being Green' as a memorial?"
It's not that easy being green, having to spend the day the color.
I wondered if I wouldn't break down, because to know Jim was to love him.
Caroll's career began on a children's TV show in Boston in 1960. 2 years later, he met Jim Henson. Is it true that when Jim Henson first offered you a job, you turned him down?
He first spoke to me in 1962, but I didn't recognize an offer for employment because he's soft-spoken. He said, "Why don't you come down to New York and talk about the Muppets?" Now, that's pretty casual.
Caroll and wife Deborah have been together 42 years. In December, Caroll will celebrate his 82nd birthday, but that's just a number. He's really still a kid at heart.
Since I was the smallest boy in my class all through school, and so to be the tallest character on television. People have asked me, "Don't you want to retire?"
Thank you, everybody.
And I can't imagine wanting to retire.
All the world's a stage, William Shakespeare wrote more than 400 years ago. And now there's a Tony Award-winning musical the Bard himself would applaud. Tinabeth Piña has the story.
What happens when you're stuck in Shakespeare's shadow in the 1590s? Well, you try to one-up the Bard, of course, and that's exactly what Something Rotten, Broadway's latest musical, is all about.
Something Rotten is about two brothers, Nick and Nigel Bottom, who own a theater company. They're hapless, sweet, sweet-natured brothers who are living in a time when Shakespeare happens to be a rock god. And so as they try to compete with this rock god, asks the soothsayer what the next great thing in the theater will be. And the soothsayer looks into the future and sees musicals.
Boral serves up the laughs as William Shakespeare, while Brian Darcy James plays his competition, Nick Bottom, in this Tony Award-winning show.
How difficult is it to parody something like Shakespeare?
It's in the writing. I think so much of the writing, you can hear people when they hear the references, and that kind of does all the work. And since we don't really know what Shakespeare was like, and this take that they have is rock star Shakespeare, it becomes more about being familiar with rock stars than it does about being familiar with Shakespeare, which is a relief because I failed in college.
But even for those who failed in college with Shakespeare, you know, people who don't have an encyclopedic knowledge of it, there is so much that exists in our world that Shakespeare has written that people probably don't even know that they know it. So when they hear familiar lines or they hear character names that they have heard of, it's obvious that what's happening is that this kind of mythical creature that is Shakespeare is being lampooned.
Do you guys think some people might walk away thinking like that's how the Renaissance period was?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I hope not. I think that people will appreciate that this is just very tongue-in-cheek, and it's a suggestion, it's a place, it's a part of history, and we're taking great liberty with it.
But I do think in some ways it could be like a gateway drug for people, for kids in particular, to be more interested in Shakespeare.
Absolutely.
And read the actual Shakespeare and find out some of the history of that period. Period-wise, I learned that, you know, we're so, the trope of the turkey leg being the thing that people eat around like Renaissance fairs. No turkey legs. They were little pheasant legs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, think about it.
Something Rotten also has 5 tap dancing numbers throughout the show, a fact these co-stars weren't completely relaxed about.
I would never say I'm a tap dancer. I would say I've taken classes in the past. But it is something that I've had the occasion to do, or for whatever reason, the director says, hey, you can do this, right? And before I can say no, I'm like, deep tap, deep, 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 you know, okay, guess I'm tapping now.
Someone said the funniest part of it is that still on our faces, as we're taking the galoshes off our tap boots, that there's still a moment where we're both like, oh God, here we go.
Now, with your character, you do a lot of moves of your own.
Mm-hmm.
What was the influence? Is it Elvis? I see a little Elvis. I saw a little James Brown.
Yeah, that's it. There's some Prince in there.
Prince?
There's some Mick Jagger in there. There's some late era Britney Spears. Yeah.
How
watch
so?
for it.
Which move?
Just in the laziness.
Oh.
That's when I let the backup dancers do all the hard work.
If you had to show me how to do a dance move right now, could you? Would you?
There's one move that I feel comfortable doing,
okay,
but it requires not wearing any pants.
Oh.
Will you learn it with me?
Yes, I will.
It's very simple, and it's just this.
That's like Mick Jagger.
Doesn't that feel good to do?
Yeah.
I get to do that 8 times a week.
There's also a standing ovation 8 times a week before the end of the first act.
I've never experienced anything like that in the middle of a show, so it's a delightful thing, and it just ignites into a really amazing response every night.
It's wave after wave. Like, it starts to kind of wane a little bit, and then it lifts back up, maybe 4 times. Yeah. And I think there's something cathartic happening, actually, for audience members.
That amazing response will probably make this show a Broadway comedy classic.
It's a very difficult thing to produce a show and have people know about your show. This is something that no one's ever heard of. And so for us, in such little time, to have established ourselves as a viable, great evening in the theater is a remarkable thing.
Now people know what Something Rotten is, and that's so gratifying. Do you want to do the song? Was that the pitch?
I don't think I want to do the song.
Okay. We usually do like a end of an interview song.
Oh, the end of the interview song.
Yeah.
This is the end of the interview. I hope you enjoyed the interview. This is the end.
This is Tinabeth Piña for Arts in the City.
Summer's not over yet, and if you're looking for one more beach read, this provocative author has you covered.
I'm Minnie Roh. Jackie Collins is a queen of writing about the R-rated romps and shenanigans of the rich and the famous. With 29 New York Times bestsellers under her belt, Collins knows how to deliver a great book that her fans will love. And her newest book, The Santangelos, is no exception.
She was such a good character and people loved her so much.
Lucky Santangelo is back, as beautiful and strong as ever. This is Jackie Collins' 32nd book, and the 10th one revolving around the Santangelo clan, Lucky and her father Gino. In typical Collins fashion, the Santangelos is a tale that weaves multiple threads of ambition, hope, desire, drugs, and a completely unexpected murder, all of which come together in a crescendo at the end. Through it all, Lucky is victorious and manages to look gorgeous while doing so.
I think she's the woman I would like to be in another life. I would love to be Lucky. She's fearless. I'm a bit like that. You know, I do what I want to do. I say what I want to say. I don't hold back. I'm not politically correct in any way, shape, or form, and nor is Lucky.
Lucky's strong personality is a common trait among all of Collins's female leads.
It's so interesting to write strong women because you don't see a lot of them. You see a woman going, "Oh, you're going to marry me? How great! Isn't that wonderful?" You know, women have to do it for themselves. Right. Women have to have power.
Collins's own childhood reads like a page out of one of her bestseller books. Her father was a theatrical agent who represented stars like the Beatles, Roger Moore, and Shirley Bassey. Her sister Joan was an actress who later became famous for starring in the hit series Dynasty. At 15, Collins was expelled from school for a number of infractions, including hitting someone with a lacrosse stick and throwing her uniform into the Thames. That was the end of her formal schooling, but it didn't stop her from following her dream.
And I said to my parents, I want to be a writer, and they said, "Oh, no, forget about it. You got to go to college, you got to get degrees, you got to do this, you got to do that." And I said, "But I'm not doing that. I'm going to write stories. I'm a storyteller. I'm going to write." And I did.
Her first book, The World is Full of Married Men, made the bestseller list within a week of publication, and Collins has been unstoppable since. The titillating titles of her books invite the reader to enter a sensuous world that is far removed from everyday life. Collins says she never plans out her stories in advance, and even she is surprised at every twist and turn.
You know, I'm just writing. The characters are taking me on a trip. I don't know how that all happens. When I sat down with the Santangelos, I knew it was going to be about Lucky. I knew somebody was going to die, and that's all I knew. And then I just started to write.
And speaking of writing, when Collins writes, she literally writes with a pad and a pen.
I love doing that. You know, I love my handwriting. I love having them leather bound when I finish the book. To me, that's the fun of writing. And my pen, you know, creates the characters. You know, I don't want to type it. I don't want to go on the computer and do it. I let my assistant do that.
But don't let her old school ways fool you. A self-professed pop culture junkie who reads 7 to 8 papers a day, Collins is up on all the latest trends and is social media savvy with Twitter and Facebook accounts. She says this is how she stays relevant and can appeal to her wide range of fans, from the older married woman to the teenage boy reading his mother's stash of books.
Young boys love my books.
Young boys?
Yeah,
really?
Young boys. They're always writing to me. All ages, all sizes, all sexual orientation, all nationalities, you know. And I think so there is somebody for everyone in all of my books that they can identify with and zero in on. And I think that helps tremendously. Right. I don't want to write, you know, an enclosed book. I want to write a big book, you know, with all characters, all nationalities.
Right. For all her dramatic and sensational plot lines, Collins says it's nothing compared to what's in the headlines these days.
There's the 2 killers that were released, well, not released, that escaped from jail because they were having sex with the prison guard, allegedly. And then there is Donald Trump going to run for president. And then there is that girl who's claiming to be black when she's actually white. I mean, if I wrote those kind of stories, nobody would believe me. They'd go, Jackie's gone crazy.
And with 500 million book sales worldwide and counting, it's safe to say Collins knows what she's talking about when it comes to stories people want. I'm Minnie Roh for Arts in the City.
I'm Caroll Anne Riddell. On this field in East Harlem, baseball is much more than just a sport. It's an all-out effort to transform young lives through the power of team play.
Good pitch, good pitch.
For Dad Jason Dupret, watching his son play baseball on this field feels a bit like rounding the bases of his own childhood. He grew up in this neighborhood and remembers well what this East Harlem lot once looked like.
You grew up in this neighborhood, you said, correct?
Yes.
Tell me what this field was like when you were growing up.
Nothing like what you see today. Like I said before, it was a dirt field, nothing but pebbles, sometimes glass. It was locked off to kids during the day. It was nothing like this.
This is the result of hard work, the efforts of the organization Harlem R.B.I, and a belief in the power of baseball to change lives permanently. The satisfying thump in a glove from a ball narrowly caught, the crack of a bat, the gratification of a game well played, whether won or lost. The magic of baseball brings us back, young and old, year after year. But for the kids on this field, it means much more. Improved schoolwork, higher graduation rates, and brightened futures. It's a place where good grades are cheered from the stands like home runs.
Baseball offers a unique opportunity for our kids to practice life skills that they might face in any sort of life encounter. So if you get up to bat in the first inning and you strike out, you have to persist. You have to talk to your coach and say, why did I strike out, coach? And hear the feedback and be able to have that conversation. You have to say you got in a fight with your teammate earlier in the day. You're still on the field with them and you have to figure out how to coexist, and it coexists in a productive fashion. So it really does replicate a workplace, a relationship, a family, a college dorm room. It has all of those unique aspects that they might not get in another sport.
After volunteers initially transformed this lot in 1991, Harlem R.B.I fought to keep it when a proposed condominium development threatened its future. In 2005, the Harlem R.B.I Field of Dreams reopened, now complete with an irrigation system, brick dugouts, a batting cage, and a full sports program offered at no cost to its families.
Every single service at Harlem R.B.I is free of charge. Everything from the uniforms, the equipment, the opportunity to ride buses to games, all of that is free.
It's an important point because sports can get expensive, potentially shutting out generations of children who simply can't afford to play. But this is about much more. The children in this sports-based youth development program are also getting a host of other services every week. For example, academic help, college counseling, and job training. Plainly stated, the mission is to give inner-city kids the opportunity to play, learn, and grow. And baseball is one way to get there.
On the baseball field, it's a failure sport. So 4 out of 10 times is a 400 batting average, which is considered good. So the all-stars in the major leagues, you've made the all-star game if you're at 400. But that also means you failed 6 times. So we like to teach our kids that in failure, there's a way to succeed as well, and it's how you go about that failure.
Volunteer coach Matt Burdoff understands that well. He played baseball all through college.
I realized when I started to no longer be a baseball player and be just a human, that how important everything I learned playing baseball was. Everything from showing up on time, respecting your teammates, working together. It all applies to your real life.
Harlem R.B.I points to some impressive statistics to back up its work. Since 2005, 96% of Harlem R.B.I seniors have graduated from high school. 93% of Harlem R.B.I seniors have gained college acceptance. And 99% of Harlem R.B.I participants have avoided teen parenthood.
From the moment we start to the moment we finish, nothing but 100% effort, all right? So we're going to start this again. Let's go, clap it up.
The messages are consistent. Do your best. Be your best.
That's one of the biggest things that drew me to RBI is as much as we love baseball and he loves baseball, it's more than baseball.
It's like a gift to be here.
The ultimate goal here, to take the skills kids learn on a baseball diamond, skills like teamwork, respect, and discipline, and translate them into life off the field. I'm Caroll Riddell for CUNY TV.
We're beginning a new monthly segment called Hidden Gems of New York. Today we reveal a centuries-old house with a secret garden in the middle of Manhattan you probably never knew existed.
Nestled between towering skyscrapers on East 61st Street lies this colonial-era house, the Mount Vernon Hotel Museum. Built in 1799 as a carriage house, it was converted into a hotel in 1826. For the next 8 years, it served as an oasis for travelers from New York City, which at the time only reached as high as 14th Street. The hotel became a private home in 1833 and changed hands several times over the next century before the colonial dames of America bought it. The New York City Preservation Commission named the museum an historic landmark in 1967. Walk into the museum now and you'll enter into a portrait of life during the early 19th century. The kitchen is decorated with common foods of the era like oysters and turtle soup cooked in an open hearth. The parlor contains what was once a bustling bar where men would gather to drink and play cards. Behind the house, a garden is open for visitors to explore and relax in. The Mount Vernon Hotel Museum is open Tuesdays through Sundays from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. and offers guided tours throughout the day.
That's our show for today. For more information about our stories or watch them online, go to our website at the link below. I'm Pat Collins, and thanks for watching Arts in the City.